All right, motherfuckers, we are live. One of the best days of the year is here, Selection Sunday. Who would have fucking thought? We are back and ready to go for another month of college hoops action. The bracket just revealed a moment ago. A lot of you might be wanting to turn to ESPN, all that shit. No, those guys don't fucking know jack shit. This is the real fucking show. We keep it real. We keep it raw. We got the fucking picks. We got the fucking insight. Brandon Russell, Ryan Stulken joining me tonight. We got some guests coming our way in a half hour. Let's get right fucking into it here. Before we break down the bracket here, obviously we got to break some news and talk Iowa hoops a little bit. Fran McCaffery was shit canned as head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes after 15 seasons. Before we get to the bracket, we got to address this right away. What is the state of Hawkeye Nation? We'll let you take the wheel on this one first, Stulken.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more excited about that than I am about March Madness, to be honest. Fran gave us a great 15 years, but I'm glad that they cut the cord. We're going to move on. Seeing the selection show today, it makes me excited because this is going to be the last time the Hawks are out of this tournament, this selection Sunday for years. So I'm really excited. Hopefully these teams can make their run. Breeze is fucking coming. The Hawks are coming. And so, yeah, I'm just really excited. It's going to be a fun offseason. I'm happy West Virginia didn't make the tournament. They'll probably go to the NIT or whatever that Crown League is, but hopefully it's quick so we can get things moving in Iowa City.
Yeah, I agree. When I heard the news, I couldn't believe it. Like you said earlier, it's hard to believe that we're in the spot again. That's the first time since we were like in what, 5th and 6th grade, shit like that back then. And it's incredible to think about. McCaffrey is out, and it does appear that our path to Darian DeVries gets a little bit easier now that they're not in the NCAA tournament, a little bit quicker perhaps. But I think we're going to make the right move. I don't think Beth Getz would have done this if she didn't know who she was going to get. I don't think she would have done this, and then we're scrambling to find a head coach. I think they know what the fuck is up in Iowa City. And I'm excited for the new era of college football in Iowa City.
Yeah, I mean, I don't picture it being anyone outside of DeVries or McCollum. I think this is the first time. I mean, we haven't had a coaching change in a long time, but there's two hot coaching candidates out there that are both from the state. So I think it kind of lines up perfect. Obviously, Beth and the whole athletic department knows that. Now's the time to kind of make a move. And I think getting a good head coach will solve a lot of the issues. I know there's a lot of Iowa fans that are like, well, our facilities suck. We don't have NIL funding, blah, blah, blah. I think you start with getting a good head coach. You get fans back in the seats. You get donors back on board. And I think that's kind of where you start. And then the money will come. I mean, Iowa has money. I think towards the end of Fran's tenure, they didn't really see a reason to fund it too much. So I think once they get a new head coach, hopefully DeVries or McCollum, I'm hoping DeVries, I think they'll be back on board with the funding. And I mean, you're going to have a guy that's going to be looking more outside of the state of Iowa. I mean, I feel like Fran just got kind of satisfied within the state, got a little lazy. So I think it's exciting times. We're going to see a new style, new brand of basketball. And, this year it sucked because I didn't even like watching Iowa games. So I'm really excited for next year.
As a perspective from the other side, I'm glad you guys are getting something good going in your basketball program. Because I hate talking shit to you guys when you don't even watch the games because they're so bad. But I honestly think this is going to be – you're going to find your Fred Hoiberger, TJ Otzelberger with one of these hires if it's indeed McCollum or DeVries. So that's exciting. Hopefully it's not a Steve Prohm deal. Hopefully these guys – I think these guys are much better than Steve Prohm and more comparable to TJ and Fred Hoiberg. But you're going to have a lot of fun if you can figure out the transfer portal and actually be consistently maybe even a top 25 team for the next 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, I was even looking back. I was a kid. I really didn't realize how bad Todd Licklider was and how bad the end of the Steve Alford era was. So it's just been a long time since we've had a real exciting coach. I feel like everyone's kind of just been out on Fran for the last few years. Obviously, he had a great couple runs with the Murray brothers and Garza, but outside of those guys, I mean, it's kind of been tough. And I think personally he got lucky with the Murray brothers. I don't think anyone would have saw them getting as good as they did. They had no real interest on the Division I level. So I think Fran really he got those handed to him. So it'll be nice to get a staff that's good at recruiting and ready to roll.
I got into an argument with both recurring guests yesterday, Joe Duggan and Broden Coulter. I made a simple comment. I think Fran should have been gone last year, the year before. And they were bragging like he brought Keegan Murray, he brought Chris Murray, Luka Garza. I'm like, dude, Fran didn't do – yeah, you guys you guys were good those years, but you're right. He was handed those. If those players don't happen to fall in his lap, I mean –
his one big recruit was Garza, I would say. Outside of that – and I mean, I guess
how much development
how
much development did Fran have to do with Keegan, Chris, or Luka Garza, you think?
I think Garza, he had quite a bit. But I think the Murray brothers, he obviously developed, but I think that was honestly on them too. They just, I don't know, out of nowhere, they just popped. Like, that was actually crazy.
So, yeah, how long have you wanted Fran gone for?
I wanted him gone for years, going back probably a decade. But enough of the Fran talk. Let's get into the brackets here before the guests go on. I have Ryan. You got your screen ready to go?
Yes.
Here we go. What went away?
High Point. I'm guessing you're picking them to.
All right, so we'll start in the South region.
What sticks out to you?
We got Auburn. Auburn's the number 1 overall seed. Alabama State, St. Francis playing in the Sweet Six or in the first 4 matchup of the 16s. The thing that stood out to me right away was Louisville is ranked 13th in the country in the AP poll. What the fuck are they doing at the 8 line? They should be 2 seeds ahead, and I'm not an ACC guy, but they're ranked top 15 and they're an 8 seed. Creighton that is going to run into a buzzsaw. I think they have a tough matchup there right away. And then, of course, everyone's going to be talking about the 5-12. UC San Diego's got a damn good team. They won last night. Michigan, obviously, is fresh off the Big Ten championship. So that's interesting. Yale's always a great team in the first round. Texas A&M potentially could be running into some trouble. And then the biggest thing for me was how the hell is North Carolina in the NCAA tournament? They went 1-12 or 1-13 against Quad 1 schools. I think they get it because of their name. I'm not sure how West Virginia gets completely left out. Every bracket that I was looking at had them as a 10 seed and not even playing in the first 4. And they get completely left out. Something got fucked up majorly there. Iowa State, the last time they were a 3 seed, I mean, I'm going to have to fill me in on what happened there. And then Michigan State, I think, can jog their way to the Elite 8 here. I'm not worried about Marquette or New Mexico for them, or Bryant. Those are my initial thoughts in the South.
Yeah, I think when I first saw the South kind of from back up, I mean, I don't really understand conference tournaments do for these teams anymore, because these brackets are preset before the conference tourneys outside of a few bubble teams and then like the 1 seeds. I mean, I cannot believe Michigan got hosed and got a 5. I mean, when you look at the other 5s and some of the 4s that are in the bracket this year, like Michigan runs the gauntlet, wins the Big Ten tourney, which is pretty impressive. And they're sitting there with a 5, and they get matched up with a tough 12. I mean, UC San Diego, I mean, they've been good all year, great offense. That's going to be really tough, especially with them running out that huge lineup. I mean, UC San Diego is smaller, pretty athletic. It could cause major issues for them. I think that 8-9 with Louisville Creighton's really, really good. Both teams played really well in their conference tournament. Again, I could see both those teams even being higher than what they are. I think that'll be a great matchup. And then Yale, I mean, if anyone watched that Yale game today, I mean, holy crap. Those guys can shoot the shit out of the ball. That post player, I can't remember his name. He was the player of the year in the Ivy League. He's really good. I think it's Buchanan. He's a great player. So that'll be, I mean, that 12-13, Yale and UC San Diego, those are both really good teams. North Carolina, I think they benefited from a really weak bubble. Their out-of-conference schedule was damn gauntlet, which I'll give them that. They only won 1 of those games, but a few of them were close. I mean, I think they only lost to Florida by 6. Should have beat Kansas. I don't know. As a college basketball fan, I'm not super mad that they're in. I mean, they're a blue blood. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not shocked that they're in just because of what the committee does. But And then that Marquette New Mexico matchup, that'll be awesome. I mean, those are you're going to see two of the best guards in the nation with Cam Jones and then Donovan Dent go at it. I mean, that's going to be an awesome matchup. What I would really like to see is Iowa State, Michigan State. I know Keyshawn Gilbert's out, but I think Iowa State, I've said a lot. I think their ceiling's a Sweet 16, but I would love to see them match up with Michigan State just because I love that Michigan State team. But I think as an Iowa State fan, Sheets, you should be pretty excited. I think they got a pretty good draw for these first couple rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I came into this thinking as long as we're not in the same bracket as Duke or Florida, I'll be happy. Because we have already competed with Auburn. If we get lucky enough to get far enough to play Auburn. We've lost by 2 to them in Maui. We easily could have won that game up like 19.5 or something. Not really too scared of Michigan State. We've already beat Marquette this year. I like, even with KG being out, I still like our chances. You've said in the past that Keyshawn Gilbert being out almost helps our team. Beck texted me today, said, looks like we're going to have 8 less turnovers going forward, which is true. I am going to miss he is a bucket getter. I mean, if we needed someone going to the rim, he's probably one of the better options, but overall, I was happy with this draw. And I'm not surprised at all that Michigan was already slated as a 5 seed. If you remember last year, Iowa State ran the Big 12 tournament, beat the number 1 team in the nation by 30 points, largest margin of victory all year by a number 1 team, and got snubbed out of a 1 seed because it was set before the conference tournament even started. This is nothing new.
Yeah, it's so annoying. But yeah, I do think TJ kind of snipping it and just coming out and saying Keyshawn's out, I think that'll help the team just with preparation wise. But yeah, he's just so hot or cold. I mean, when he's on, I mean, he could take Iowa State to a damn Final Four. But when he's off, he just kills the entire team. So I think with him being out already, I mean, they're going to be able to prepare for that. I think they should be okay without him.
I think they'll be okay. And honestly, I'm surprised that you two are surprised that North Carolina's in the bracket. I mean, I'm talking to the 2 biggest people who are advocates of stuff going on for money behind the scenes and whatnot. Of course, North Carolina is going to make it if they're on the bubble. They're a massive brand. They bring in money. They travel. So yeah, I was not surprised. I disagree with the decision. North Carolina, to me, should not be in it. Their resume is not strong enough, but I kind of figured this would happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy they're in, but I could see why there's major controversy about it.
I think it's disgusting they got in. I think they had no business getting in. 1-12 against quad 1 wins. We're going to lump them in a tournament full of quad 1 teams for what fucking reason? But I'm not going to go off too much on who got in. Let's just focus on the picks. I hate to be like a guy who's all chalk, but that South region looks completely chalk to me. Auburn, I think should go far. Michigan State, I think, will go far. I think Iowa State will go far. Who else is your other threats? Texas A&M, who could lose to Yale, like we talked about. Michigan, who should have been somewhere in another region at a higher seed, at a better seed. Instead, they get lumped in. They could lose right away. Louisville, I'm looking at them like I'm going to go back to them. How are they an 8 seed? How is Marquette ahead of them in this region? How is Ole Miss ahead of them in this region? They're ranked higher than them. They got 5 more wins in both of them. So then, Louisville could be like a dangerous 6 seed team. They're down as an 8. They could go down, to Auburn right away. They have to play them in the second round instead of potentially, playing like a 3 or 4 in the second round. So I just think it's pretty chalk for Michigan State, Iowa State, or Auburn to come out of this region. Looking at it, Michigan got hosed on their seed. They have to play the best 12 seed of any of the regions. Yale, I think, will beat A&M. You knock those 2 teams out right away. I don't see anyone else being a threat. Ole Miss, fuck out of here with them. Marquette, Shaka Smart's their coach. No shot. So I think if Michigan State, Iowa State, that winner could potentially go all the way. I don't know. I'm looking at Auburn or Iowa State out of this region.
I think the most intriguing game in this region is that Creighton-Louisville game. That one should be a good-ass game, and I honestly think either one of those teams could beat Auburn. I think Auburn's very beatable. I don't think they're up there with Duke and Florida.
So it's funny you say that because I don't see anyone in this region touching Auburn. I know they've lost 3 of 4, But I think I don't know. I think you want a little adversity going into the tournament. Now they're going to be fired up. I don't see any of these teams in this region beating Auburn. None of them.
We'll see if Chad
So,
Baker-Mazara gets ejected from another game like he seems to do. That could affect things. We should put a bet on it. You and I. I'll bet you they're not in the Final Four. You want to take that bet?
Okay. Yeah, we can talk after this. But yeah, I mean, I think Auburn runs this region. They set it up perfectly for them. I don't think they should be the number one overall seed. Kind of after, I mean, they've kind of limped into the tourney, but obviously with the committee, we understand how stupid they can be. Okay, let's move on to the West. I think overall, this is a really, really tough bracket. I think this is probably the most loaded region, in my opinion. Looking at Florida, I'm going to come out and say it. I think they're going to be the national title. I think they're going to win it all. I know that sounds chalky after they just ran the SEC tourney, but I've liked them all year. Their rotation with those four big men, I mean, it's literally untouchable. And I think Walter Clayton, I think he's the best point guard in the country. They're legit 9 deep. They're just so good. They play great defense. They can score 100 like they did on who the hell did they play in their semifinal? Bama. I think Florida's so damn good. So it'll be interesting. I think you look at like that Colorado State Memphis game. That's a great 5-12. Memphis is really, really good, but Colorado State's really, really hot. So that'll be an interesting matchup. I've liked Maryland all year. But as we remember, Grand Canyon kind of had that Cinderella run recently, so that'll be an interesting matchup too. I was a little unimpressed with Maryland in the Big Ten tourney. I thought they could do a little more damage, but they kind of fell quicker than I anticipated. And then the bottom half, Missouri Drake. I think going into the tournament, whoever Drake's going to play, I think the nation's kind of like they're going to be a public dog. But, man, this Missouri matchup is really, really tough. Missouri's damn good, especially if Mark Williams is back and healthy. I personally don't see anyone on Drake being able to guard Mark Williams. I think he's just going to eat them up. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to really think about that. But I wanted to take Drake to win a game, maybe two, but I don't think they're going to get past Missouri, personally. And then that Kansas-Arkansas matchup. That one's going to be a great matchup. I think just Coach Cal versus KU. I think overall that'll be a great one. And then you look at St. John's Omaha. St. John's is going to fucking dominate Omaha. And then you look at that storyline of Coach Cal versus Rick Pitino potentially in the second round, which is exactly what the committee set up. If that happens, that'll be a great match. So I'll scroll back up. What do you guys think about the West?
Go ahead, Mize.
I think this region is loaded, and relative to all the other regions, I think this is the toughest draw. I think Florida, who you can make an argument could have been the overall number one seed, they have a rough draw here. I mean, you got some loaded teams in this region. You talk about St. John's, who obviously breezed through the Big East. You give a Memphis squad who's got damn near 30 wins and a firepower offense. You got Maryland too. I think I'm going to say it right now. I think can and potentially will win this region. I think they could knock off Florida. Fuck Grand Canyon. Yeah, I get they had a win last year, but against who? BYU. This year is different. Grand Canyon will lose. Maryland's just too solid of a squad. I think they'll get past either Colorado State or Memphis in the 5-12. And I think Maryland could potentially take down Florida. Florida is a trendy pick. They might be the trendiest pick of anyone to win it now. I think there's going to be too much money on them, too much hype around Florida. It's too bad because that was kind of a sleeper team I had like a month ago because they were looking at maybe 2 or 3 seed. After a 1 seed, they could catapult all the way to 1 seed line. And now everyone's I'm gonna stay away from them in my brackets. But about a month ago, I was looking at them to maybe win it all. I think there's too much hype around them. I think Maryland gets out of here. You're talking about Drake. I think they'll be. I mean, you talked about the last good Missouri team that people actually gave a damn about and knew about. What happened to them? They lost to Norfolk State. I think they'll lose again to Drake, and it's too bad because they got a talented roster, but they kind of fell apart. I think they should have done a little bit better in the SEC with the roster that they have, and now they run into a tough Drake team. Texas Tech, man, I mean, they could potentially make a Sweet 16 again quietly, and then like you said, St. John's and Arkansas, you know damn well that they want that to happen, and even if it's not Calipari, you got Bill Self and Rick Pitino. You knew they wanted to get some big coaching matchup with Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
Around, and that's what they did. I was looking at maybe Duke. I'm like, maybe they want to set it up for them and Duke to go to like the Elite Eight. But this makes total sense too. Yeah, Calipari and Pitino. I think that's a little too convenient. I think that's going to happen, and I hope it happens. But I think Omaha could potentially give St. John's a little bit of their run. I see St. John's coming out rusty in that first round game, and I think Omaha keeps it close with them. I think that'll be tighter game. Yeah. But my pick is Maryland to come out of this region.
Interesting. Yeah, I think what will be interesting with that Drake-Missouri matchup is Missouri wants to run up and down the damn floor. And Drake, everyone knows Drake. They're going to run that shot clock within 5 seconds to get a final shot off. So I think whoever wins that game, it's just going to who can dictate the tempo, because Drake's going to want to slow the ball down. Missouri's going to want to run. So it'll be really, really interesting to kind of see who's able to control the pace in that game. I know Jody Wagner, friend of the show, is listening in and watching. Jody Wagner is a big Kansas fan, and there's no goddamn way Kansas wins in round 1. Coach Cal is going to take down Bill Self. Coach Cal is made for the moment. He's made for March. It's going to be him versus Pitino in the second round. It's going to be electric. So personally, I don't see anyone. I don't know. I hate how trendy Florida is now, because now the whole world is all over them. But I think it's almost impossible to take anyone over them in this bracket. Especially, I know you like Maryland, Mize. Maryland has a great starting 5. They have 2 great bigs, but when you put that up against Florida's 4 good bigs, I mean, they can go right at those 2. But like Derek Queen could get in foul trouble quick. Julian Reese could get in foul trouble quick. If that happens, Maryland's in trouble immediately. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be really hard for me to take anyone over Florida, though, in this region.
I have the absolute most confidence. This region to me is so clear. It's unreal. I think there's a reason that there's a lot of people on Florida. They're very chalk. They're going to win. UConn's going to beat Oklahoma, but then lose to Florida. Memphis doesn't have Tyrese Hunter, it's going to sound like, so they're missing their starting point guard and averaging 13 points a game. They're going to lose in a 12-5 upset. Maryland will win. Missouri, Stulken, myself, Funk, Joe, and a couple other people have been to a couple Drake games this year. We've watched them live. Obviously, I love them. They're from Des Moines. I will be cheering for them. I think they will get mollywalked by Missouri. I don't think they can guard anybody 1 through 5 on Missouri, and they're going to try and slow it down, but I think they're going to get caught up in Missouri's game, and I think they're going to win by 20. Tech is going to beat the shit out of UNCW. You're right, Jody Wagner, fuck you. Arkansas is going to roll Kansas. St. John's will come out of this region, or this side of the region, and it will be a St. John's, Florida. This is going to be chalk. St. John's, Florida matchup to win this region. I don't know who's going to win that game, but I'm not kidding. I might pick this bracket. This might be a perfect side of the bracket for me.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the other regional, because it's getting close to guess time, but we'll breeze through these ones. Regional, looking at it, I mean, that Oregon-Liberty matchup's going to be interesting. Liberty can really fill it up offensively. Akron's no sleeper against Arizona, so that'll be interesting. Arizona did look really good in the Big 12 tournament. All dependent upon Caleb Love. If he's on, he's on. If he's off, he's dog shit. BYU VCU. So last year, BYU came in really hot to the tourney, and I remember taking them Sweet 16 or Elite 8, and they got freaking bounced. Was it round 1 maybe last year? I don't know. They're a really good team, but they're so damn streaky. And after them screwing me last year, I don't know how far I'm going to take them. I mean, seeing them potentially play Wisconsin, I mean, I would love Wisconsin in that matchup. But Wisconsin has a tough one against Montana. Montana looked really good in the Big Sky tournament. They have a few really good players. They're undersized, which would be tough against Wisconsin, but Montana is really good. Money Williams, one of my favorite players off their bench, big lefty. He'll be fun to watch. And then looking at the bottom, St. Mary's and Vandy, that's a great matchup. And then Bama, I mean, I think they kind of put it on a silver platter for Bama to kind of make a run here. But it's all going to be dependent on Grant Nelson, on his status. He might be out, so that'll be something to watch in this region.
Yeah, nothing really sticks out to me. I don't see any of these non-chalk teams making a deep run. Maybe BYU if they shoot like they did against us. I mean, it's really hard to repeat that. They obviously didn't do that against Houston in the Big 12 championship. But probably the most intriguing matchup to me is going to be that Wisconsin-Montana team. A couple of us have profited off Montana in their conference tournament. I think they look good. I think they could give Wisconsin some fits. And if they do, that opens up the door for possibly a BYU run. But other than that, I don't see anybody else making a run in this region. It's not Duke or Alabama.
Like I said about the last region was too damn tough. This one is a fucking joke for Duke. Who the fuck are they going to play that's any threat to them? Alabama. Alabama's going to go down early, just like they did 2 years ago to San Diego State. They're going to lose. They'll beat Robert Morris. They'll probably beat the hell out of Robert Morris. So everyone's going to get excited. And then I like St. Mary's to beat Vandy. Vanderbilt, I thought should have been playing in the first four. I think they run into a tough draw. I like Vanderbilt, but I think they run into a tough draw here. I'm taking St. Mary's over them, and I think St. Mary's beats Alabama's ass in the second round. You're going to get them knocked out right away. The 3 seed Wisconsin, I think, has a chance to go to the Elite Eight, but they're not going to beat Duke. I mean, there's nobody in this region that I think is a threat to the Blue Devils at all, and that's not because Duke's so good, because they left this as a fucking cakewalk. This region, I think, stinks. Other than that, I do like the BYU-VCU matchup. That's going to be one hell of a game in the first round. I'm looking for that. And then, what a joke. Arizona and Oregon will probably win their first round game, so then you get a Pac-12 game. How convenient.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting if that St. Mary's Bama matchup happens because, again, Bama wants to get up and down, and St. Mary's will really try to control the pace and slow it down. So it'll be interesting to see who can kind of control that pace. And if Grant Nelson's out, St. Mary's, I think they're more disciplined than Bama. So that would be a really interesting matchup because personally, I don't know. I think St. Mary's should be a little higher than a 7, just with how well they played this year. And so we'll see. This will be an interesting region. But yeah, I mean, Duke got it freaking served on a silver platter to make a run here. So I think they already beat Arizona this year. So I don't see them being really a factor, but we'll see. And lastly, let's go to the Midwest. Initial thoughts here is how in the hell is Purdue a 4 seed when looking at the rest of the Big Ten? Better teams in the Big Ten are lower seed line than them. So I don't really understand that. Purdue hasn't really looked that great the last month of the year. So I'm not really sure how they got a 4. But that 8-9, Georgia-Gonzaga, that'll be an interesting matchup. I think Gonzaga should be able to handle Georgia. Georgia's kind of just been good at home this year. And then I would set up a fun matchup with Houston and Gonzaga potentially. McNeese, Will Wade, I mean, he's done a great job there. They've been really good all year. Versus Clemson, Clemson's also been really good, but they benefited off of a weak ACC. Both teams are good defensively, both really athletic. So that'll be an interesting 5-12. Probably a lot of people are going to be on McNeese, just looking at their record and just kind of how they ran through their conference. And then I think Illinois getting a 6 was a little interesting. I mean, when they played Iowa in Champaign like a month ago, I was seeing a lot of Illinois fans saying that was like their Super Bowl because they had to win that game. Because if they were to lose that game, they could potentially miss out on March Madness. Obviously, they rolled the Hawks, and they kind of had a few good wins after that. But there was a little bit of a time there where people didn't even think Illinois would make it. So them being a 6 seed is pretty interesting. That Texas Xavier play-in game, I think Texas will roll Xavier, and I think Texas will beat Illinois as well. I really like that Texas team. They played well in the SEC tourney. And then kind of seeing Kentucky below that. I would love a Kentucky-Texas matchup. And then Tennessee there at the bottom. I mean, I'm not super high on UCLA. Utah State's okay, but they look like shit in their conference tourney. I think Tennessee has a nice little path to make at least the Sweet 16 and maybe the Elite Eight. So I don't know. The Midwest region, I think there'll be some decent upsets, but nothing super crazy. I think Purdue's by far the weakest 4 seed.
I mean, I think I'm going to come out and say right now, I think Houston's my pick to win the whole damn thing. I'm just thinking Kelvin Sampson, he is going to win a national title before it's all said and done. Before he retires, he will win one. He is going to. I think this is the year. Why not this year? I mean, you look at the 16 seed they play right away. You probably wondered who the fuck is SIUE. I guarantee you, more than 75% of the country filling out this bracket is going to look at that and say, "Who the fuck is that school?" Gonzaga. I mean, this is probably the worst Gonzaga school in 15, 20 years. All the way down to an 8 seed. I mean, I think they'll beat Georgia pretty easily, but they ain't touching Houston. Clemson, how the hell is Clemson a 5 seed? And then we go back across the other side. Louisville's an 8 seed. They have the same damn record. Louisville was in the championship game. I don't get how Clemson's a 5. You were hit the nail on the head. Purdue should not be a 4. They're the worst 4 seed. And I was waiting. As soon as High Point got in the tournament, they were one of the tournament. They played their championship game a little bit earlier. I think they've been in for about a week or longer, and I've been waiting anxiously. I'm like, please don't give them a stacked 4 team, because this is my team that's going to pull the upset and go far. And finally, they got it. I saw that team come up. Saw Purdue come up, and I said, perfect. First round exit. High Point is going to knock them off and then win that next game too. McNeese could beat Clemson. Even if Clemson wins, High Point's going to beat them too. I don't know what the fuck Clemson's doing out of 5. Well, Louisville's an 8. I like Illinois. I think if they've just been banged up for a while, if they can kind of get the troops rallied, I think they'll dispatch of either Texas or Xavier, 2 teams that should not be dancing. And then Kentucky and Troy, I think will be kind of a hell of a matchup. Kentucky with the first round woes recently, I think they should win. It'd be tough to see them lose again in the first round. I think Troy can dance with them a little bit. UCLA, I think, could lose right away to Utah State, and that could potentially set up a nice, interesting matchup between Utah State and Tennessee. Tennessee, I like them year in and year out, but Rick Barnes is a fraud in the NCAA tournament. He knows how to choke a fucking team away. I don't see them going far. Potentially Utah State or UCLA, whoever wins that first round game, could potentially Tennessee knock them out right away. I like this region. This region's fun. I like that much better than that East region up there. The East region is but I think Houston is the best team in the country. I think they will walk away with this one. But I like this one. It's pretty interesting. You got Gonzaga in there. I think some upsets will happen. Talented Illinois team, best offense of the Big Ten. And then down at the bottom, you got Tennessee, who is a good, like I said, I think they'll lose right away, but I mean, they got all the way to the SEC finals. UCLA is a blue blood. Kentucky, blue blood. I like this region. Even Purdue is kind of a more recent blue blood. This is a fun region.
This is a fun region, but I do think it's the weakest region by far. You guys agree with that or no?
I think the East is.
I think I would say Houston's the worst 1 seed. So yeah, I would say this is the weakest region. I think there's just a few things on Houston that kind of make me pause. Yeah, Kelvin Sampson will get a national title at some point. This next class that he has coming in, he's finally starting to land 5 stars. He's finally starting to get big-time recruiting classes. So I think his national title is going to come, but it's not going to be this year. My one drawback on them is their starting front court is 2'6'8" guys. When you compare that to a Florida who has 4 6'11" plus guys, I think that they would just eat up Houston. And I don't know. I'm just not sold on Uzan and Cryer being the go-to scorers. Juwan Roberts is kind of banged up right now. I don't know. I mean, I think Houston obviously is going to make it far, but I don't see them sniffing a title.
I think Houston easily comes out of this side and makes the Final Four. What happens after that, I don't know. But they probably are the weakest 1 seed. I think Tennessee is the weakest 2 seed personally. And there's no one, like you just said, Purdue's not worthy of a 4 seed, I don't think. No one in that top half of the bracket, I think, can compete with Houston, even if Juwan Roberts is banged up. And then on the bottom is Kentucky. They're pretty banged up too. No, I mean, Illinois doesn't really impress me that much. This whole bottom section right here, I don't even know who's going to come out of it because I'm not confident in any of those 8 teams to make a run.
I think
not a single one. So this probably will be the most fun bracket.
I think it is kind of shocking that Kentucky was able to get a 3. I think that might be a little too high. They're a damn good team, don't get me wrong. But a 3 seed, that's pretty generous, I think. But I mean, the SEC was obviously a gauntlet, so the committee's gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. But I don't know. I think Kentucky being a 3 is a little high.
That playing game will be fun. Texas Xavier will be a good game. And then whoever wins that playing Illinois will be a great game too. I don't know. This is definitely gonna be the most fun. I just don't. I'm with Meisner. I don't see how Houston doesn't come out of this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Houston should be able to handle this. I really do like Texas to win. I mean, I think they destroy Xavier, and then I think they can beat Illinois. I mean, that Trey Johnson, he is just unbelievable. If he gets hot, I mean, I don't know if he could be the best shooter in the nation when hot. Like, he is just unreal. He's going to be a top 3 draft pick. I think Texas is going to make a little run here. I think that's probably the main playing game I'm most excited for. I don't think the North Carolina one really gets me that excited. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all plays out.
All right, so we got all 4 regions. Do we want to go to our first guest, or do you have any final thoughts?
I have one final thought.
Yeah.
I think looking at the 1 seeds and their matchups this year, I don't think there's any chance of a repeat of happening. I will be placing multiple units on a 4-leg teaser, all the 1 seeds teed down. I think they're each going to win by 30-plus points.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those lines once they come out.
They're probably out.
Yeah, they are out. Yeah, no, I think we bring on the first guest.
All right.
I want to see what that Drake line is.
6 or 7. What's up, Spencer?
You already looked.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. This will be fun.
Yeah. So Spencer Dempelwolf, good buddy from high school, big time college ball enthusiast. So excited to have you on, kind of get your thoughts on what you thought of Selection Sunday, what you thought of the conference tourneys. But first, give us your thoughts on the state of Iowa basketball. I know you're a big Hawk fan.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly going to talk myself into whatever Iowa did within 10 seconds. Fran's been awesome leading us out of the Licklider era for 15 years. But ultimately, the program just got stale. I mean, I'm probably like one of 10 people in Iowa City that would consistently go to Iowa games. And you could just walk in and just walk like straight down like to the 3rd row as soon as you go down. It was really sad being in there, and it's hard to imagine like selling recruits on something like that. Whereas like you go to football games in Iowa City and it's just like a completely different atmosphere. And then I mean, I kind of agree with some of the thoughts Ryan had earlier. I think there is a component of if you build it, they'll come to Iowa City right now. We've seen that in women's basketball. Students will show out for the games. Donors will donate money to the men's basketball program. This was once a really good program in kind of the Tom Davis years, to the point where the Sweet 16 was kind of the bar. And that's just not the case right now. So I think, Fran, great coach. He's done so much. He's done a lot of great things for the program over the last 15 years, but that doesn't mean it's not time for a change, more so from like an economics and business standpoint than it is from a basketball standpoint itself.
Yeah. So with you going to games, did you have student tickets or were you buying tickets?
I mean, I had student tickets.
I was going to ask you how much you paid for each ticket, because they were probably like $5-10, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get student tickets for $5, and like when I would go with non-students, they would be getting in on SeatGeek for like similar price to I was getting in. So, I mean,
That's crazy.
it's been pretty sad. I think there was like the numbers were like they were getting like 40% like butts in the seats attendance at Big Ten games,
Yeah.
which just isn't
Yeah.
sustainable from an NIL perspective. Like in this era of college basketball, like you have to have a pretty short leash for that type of stuff. So I totally get the decision to move on. I think both the Drake guys make sense. I think another one to watch would be the Colorado State coach. I always mispronounce his name, Nico Medved. He's done really good things with that Colorado State program, and could be kind of a behind the scenes hire if the DeVries buyout gets too expensive, or if McCollum. It sounds like Indiana is super high on McCollum, and I think it's hard to justify picking Iowa over Indiana. So
one thing I'm seeing on Medvedev or whatever the hell his name is, I think he's a lock for the Minnesota job because he's a Minnesota alum. So I think he's going to end up there, which sucks. But
I know.
Yeah, I guess the one pro to Iowa not having many fans is the Carver Cone line was probably short, which was probably nice when you're at the games. But other than that, I feel like I think we have great options. I think the Hawks will be back. So
yeah.
So what were your initial thoughts on the bracket? I know you had texted me about Purdue, and we kind of hit on that as well. But initial thoughts, who you like?
I think so. My first thought, and you guys kind of touched on this, but that West region is absolutely brutal. I kind of do, just because, I mean, I just kind of do it for my own sake. I try to write down before the conference tournament just teams I like, so I don't get swayed by the recency every year. And 3 of the 10 teams I wrote down were St. John's, Florida, and Maryland, who are 3 of the top 4 seeds in that region. Yeah. I think I was anticipating having to do a little bit of Florida propaganda until this weekend. I know Ryan and I had texted about them back in February, but they're such a unique team where they have like these smaller guards, like possibly the best backcourt in the country. And then they have these just behemoths they bring in throughout the game, and they don't really have anything in between, which is weird in this era where it's all like 6'8" guys getting drafted in the top 10 in the draft. But it works because their front court guys are so damn versatile offensively and defensively. And just like, Walter Clayton's the clear alpha on that team, and he's maybe the best point guard in the country that not a lot of people have heard of. But like Elijah Martin, a legit Final Four player from a couple years ago, Will Richard, Alex Condon's like had random weeks where he's been their best player. There's just like, the tournament usually comes, the tournament usually comes down to just who can avoid like the devastating 5 to 10 minute scoring drought. And there's Florida's so offensively versatile that I think that there's just no way they get shut down for just like a quarter of a game. And then defensively, I think, in the SEC, their front line is maybe even a little bit less effective than when they go against some of these mid-majors and like other Power 4 teams. I think their front line is going to absolutely terrify teams, especially in those first few rounds.
Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting even too with St. John's being a really probably the best 2 seed. I think if they match up with Florida, I don't know how they keep up with Florida's bigs because St. John's isn't that big. I mean, they have Ejiofor, but outside of him, they're really not that big. They have there's great, like you said, like 6'6", 6'8", just kind of 1 through 5. But I mean, I think Florida eats them up too. So yeah, that region is loaded. Kind of sucks that we can't have Drake make a run at all, but it'll be interesting. They still could, but I think Missouri's a really tough matchup.
Yeah, I mean, that game is going to come down to just like what pace the game's played at, because Missouri's going to try to turn it into a track meet. Drake is going to try to make it like a complete half-court game, and just whatever pace it's played at will win the game. It sucks to see Drake kind of get that draw in that region. I mean, going back to St. John's, like I've kind of treated them like they remind me a lot of like a little bit worse version of what Houston teams have been like in the past, where they're just so good defensively, but it's like, where's the offense going to come from consistently? But I mean, RJ Lewis has been so good for the past month or so. And then Zuby Ejiofor is like an actually like really good big now. I think Florida was a super tough draw for them. Just looking at the bracket, I kind of wish they could have gotten in like that Houston region and just played like an absolute slog of a game in a 1-2 matchup. or even Auburn, who kind of backed into the tournament and completely got rewarded, that South region should be pretty manageable for them. So, there's multiple teams like that in that West region that I just feel kind of bummed out for the draw they got.
Yeah, imagine a Houston versus St. John's matchup. That would be incredible. I mean, those are two similar style teams, little undersized, but oh man, they're freaking scrappy. That would have been a fun matchup. Off the top of your head, do you have who would be your Cinderella team? Like a double-digit seed, making potentially a Sweet 16, Elite Eight. I think it's really hard just looking at it. Obviously, it's really hard, but do you have anyone in mind that you think could make a run that's a lower seed?
I thought, McNeese is always the hot one. I don't really think they're going to get a lot of love because of that draw they got where they have Clemson and then possibly Purdue or High Point in that second round. Will Wade, I think, kind of has one foot out the door there. So that makes me a little bit more skeptical on that one. I really like UCSD getting Michigan in the first round. And then I think a double-digit seed is going to come out of that, like UC, San Diego, Yale, Texas A&M little pod there. They're going to end up running into Auburn, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a Cinderella run. But that UC San Diego team's super fun. They force a lot of turnovers, which has kind of been Michigan's backbone, or Michigan's fault for the second half of the season. And we've seen this before where teams come in off that Big Ten tournament, you get that late Sunday game. And then you just you take, I don't know whether it's just they take that first round game for granted or what, or they're just exhausted after a 4-game in 4 day stretch. I really like UC San Diego's position in that South region.
Yeah, now that you say that, I kind of love that America just saw Michigan win that Big Ten title because I think a lot of people are going to be backing Michigan. And rightfully so, because they have the double big, which is a really good tandem. But yeah, I think that might kind of bite them in the ass versus UC San Diego because it's going to be a really tough matchup for Michigan defensively against that good offensive UC San Diego team. So that'll be a real. I feel like that South region, they have a really
That's funny.
Double-digit seeds.
That's funny you say that because I was listening to Pardon My Take and they had Dusty May on and they were asking him about what the hell he's going to do with his turnover problem. And he had to consult with 22 different coaches, put them in a group chat. It was like, hey, you guys got any drills for that? That's a red flag. And then you just brought up, I've never watched UC San Diego, but you just said they create a lot of turnovers. That's automatically clicked in my brain. I think I'm with you guys on that. I think they're going to be Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, Michigan's one of those teams too. They have that big to big pick and roll they do, but kind of like how I was talking about how I'm just looking for teams that will avoid that scoring drought. And if you stop that big to big pick and roll, I'm not quite sure, especially Roddy Gale came up with a hamstring injury today. I'm not sure where their second option is on offense.
I don't think the guards are that great.
No, I mean Trey Donaldson's quick, but I mean I wouldn't consider him a elite guard, especially in this tournament.
Yeah, and I think to win or to make a deep run into March, you have to kind of have a go-to elite guard, and I don't think Michigan really has that. If they need if they're in a position where they need a bucket, they're trying to go to one of their big men. I don't think any of their guards are going to come up with a big shot. So yeah, that'll be interesting.
Who do you think comes out of the bottom of that South region? The Iowa State, Marquette, Michigan State, Mississippi portion. I'm
gonna sound like a Big Ten homer, but I really, really like this Izzo squad. I think this is the best team he's had in years. And I think what makes them different is they can legit go 10 deep. And they have, I'd say 3, potentially 4 Xavier Bookers on. 4 good bigs, and then their guards. I mean, I love Jace Richardson. Trey Holloman always comes up clutch. They have a good mix of vets and new fresh blood with Jace Richardson. I think it's going to be really hard to beat Michigan State. I think Auburn would handle them, but I think Michigan State could come out of that bottom, which sounds like chalk, obviously, because they're the 2 seed, but I really like them.
Yeah. What does Iowa State fan think?
You know what I think. I mean, I'm pretty confident. I mean, we're going to be so dependent on how Curtis Jones does without Keyshawn Gilbert. But if Curtis Jones plays anything like he did against BYU and keeps that hot streak going, I said it before. I'm not really scared of Michigan State. There's a couple of 2 seeds I did want to play, St. John's being one of them. Michigan, to me, is not on their level. I think they're closer to Tennessee when it comes to these 2 seeds or Michigan State. So I'm not too scared of them now. Am I saying we're going to beat them if we happen to match up with them? Who knows? But it's not something that I'm going into thinking, oh, shit. Last year we lost to Illinois. I was more scared of that Illinois team than I would be playing this Michigan State team.
Yeah, that TJ Shannon Illinois team was fun. I think Michigan State, I like Michigan State. I think that particularly the way that Marquette roster is constructed, I think that's a tougher second round matchup than people will give credit. Marquette's been pretty horrible for about 2 months, but they might have the best player in the tournament, like Cam Jones can go on absolute heaters, and Stevie Mitchell's made one of the top defensive guards in the tournament. They've just gotten killed because they don't have like a really good big guy. So they've been getting killed by like the Zuby Ejiofor of the world. And Michigan State has solid big guys, but they don't have like a guy that you're running the offense through. So I think that's going to be an awesome guard matchup in that 2-7 game if Marquette can make it through New Mexico, which is another kind of tough first round matchup.
Donovan Dent, man, he's a beast.
Donovan
Dent from New Mexico.
Yeah, I'm surprised they ducked out in the semis of that tournament, but
yeah, no, I totally agree. So yeah, I think the bottom of that South is there one name right now that America doesn't know about that they will know about after March Madness? Who's a guy, like Jack Golke? He was a name nobody really knew about that kind of came out of nowhere. Do you think there's anyone?
Who was the fat kid from NC State?
What'd you say?
DJ Bird.
Who was the fat kid for NC State?
DJ
Someone like that.
Is there who? I mean, it's really hard to think about right now. But is there anyone off the top of your mind that you're like, that guy's a dog, maybe overseen, and could make a little bit of a run in March?
I think I'm going to go back to the West region and bring up Colorado State again. I think Nick Clifford. I mean, I read a lot about NBA draft stuff. He's like a legit NBA dude who has just been on an absolute heater for Colorado State, especially since February kind of turned over. And, against a Memphis team without Tyrese Hunter, and then who knows, kind of that Maryland Grand Canyon game is going to be a tough 4-13 game. I think Maryland still makes it through. I think that's a potential guy that could go on a heater to at least the Sweet 16. That's the mid-major guy who's really been on my radar as we have a Peyton Sanford come up in the chat. I would say Nick Clifford would be probably my guy.
Yeah, I initially was going to go with Money Williams from Montana just because I've watched a lot of Big Sky tourney. But then I look at getting paired up with Wisconsin. That's going to be a really tough matchup. So I don't have a name off the top of my head, but yeah, that Nick Clifford, he had a really good conference tournament. Colorado State, that'll be a great first round match.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them be like the trendy upset pick before. Like when they had like David Roddy a few years ago, they were kind of the trendy upset pick and didn't come through then. So I'm a little wary of some of these teams that just I feel like people pick just based off name recognition in that 12-5 matchup. But I think Memphis was a really good draw for them, especially if they don't have Tyrese. Wisconsin, since you mentioned them, what's different between this Wisconsin team this year and the Johnny Davis team a couple of years ago? Because I was all over Wisconsin for that Johnny Davis team, and they ducked out in the second round. I think they got a better matchup this time. BYU, I was not impressed with at the Big 12 tournament. They do not handle physicality well. But
they really
I struggle
against Houston.
Yeah, I hesitate to pick this Wisconsin team to go far, even in that really crappy East region, just based on past performance, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to really rely on Tanjay to get going. He didn't play that well today, but yeah, they're kind of an interesting team because they can be really hot, and it's kind of a different style than what we've seen with Wisconsin in past years. I feel like they get up and down a lot more and they can score the ball better, but I feel like they also can get in those scoring droughts. And I don't really know who their 1B is to Tanji, really. I don't know. They just I don't love
it has to be Blackwell.
Yeah, Blackwell. He's pretty good, but I'm not sold on Crowell. I don't know. He's been there for 8 years, I feel like. So yeah, they'll be interesting.
I mean, Wisconsin just reeks of like an Iowa team that would lose in the first round, led by a Murray brother like 2 years ago. So
sure.
I mean, I'm like looking at VCU in that little pod as a potential team, and then like Alabama hasn't impressed me, and Grant Nelson's possibly out now. That East region I think is probably the most likely region where we see like I don't even know, like a 6 or up seed coming out of there for the Final Four. I mean, Duke has a pretty clear path, but if they fall off, I'm not quite sure who wins that region.
Yeah. So who right now, what would be your Final Four prediction if you had to make a pick?
Yeah. I think looking at the bracket right now, I'll go South region first. I think I was really wanting to pick against Auburn kind of going into this, and I only see one team in that region I think that can beat them, and I think it's Michigan State. So I'm going to go Michigan State out of the South, even though I think they do have a really tough path. I'm going to go Florida out of the West. I think that's a really tough region. I wish it would have been easier for Florida. But I'll stick with them out of the West. Midwest, I'm going to go I'm between Tennessee and Houston. Houston just comes down to whether they have enough offensive firepower. I was actually really impressed with them at the Big 10 tournament or Big 12 tournament. I think Emmanuel Sharp is playing at a way better level than he was in the middle of the season. They were really impressive even without Juwan Roberts. I'm gonna stick with Houston coming out of that region. I hate going this much chalk, but I think there's a clear line between like the top 6 seeds and the rest of the country this year.
I was just gonna say that.
And then I think
looking at it, it's so hard to not go chalk on the Final Four. So hard.
Yeah, there's really not I'm not really impressed with any of the 3 through 5 seeds this year, which I think is the major difference in years past. I think the East region is the one region that'll get weird. I'm looking at either Arizona or Oregon in that pod there. I think whoever comes out of there will have a really good shot at the Final Four, because I'm not impressed with the bottom half of that bracket. What'd you say?
Do you think Arizona?
Yeah, I think
out of that.
I think Arizona's playing a lot better now than they were early in the season. Yeah, I mean, I'm biased. I just watched them. Live. Caleb Williams is playing like as good as he ever has right now. But I hate like every team as we go through this bracket, and I don't want to pick Duke. I'll probably end up picking Duke in my official bracket, but for the time being, I'm gonna throw Arizona in as a placeholder there.
I like it. Yeah, I feel like just within the last month, in my mind, it's like, I think it's clearly Duke, Auburn, and Florida. I think like outside of those 3, I really can't see any in the national title. I think 3 are just so damn good. But like I feel like the top like 6 teams, I feel like it's really hard to pick anyone outside of that to make the Final Four.
Yeah, this is not like a couple years ago. Yeah, I mean, it's not like a couple of years ago where UConn was kind of the like hot 4 seed going into the tournament. We just don't have that this year. Like a lot of these 3 to 4 seeds are kind of backing into the tournament. If Iowa State had Gilbert, I'd probably be more inclined to pick him to come out of the South. I think it's just going to be like, where's the offense coming from consistently those last like 5 minutes of the game. And I mean, that's like oftentimes the difference between making a Sweet 16 and the Final Four, which I think will be the case for them. But
yeah, I think Deshaun Jackson's got to figure this shit out, because I feel like the last couple of months he just has not been what everyone thought he would be. So yeah, it'll be really interesting with Iowa State because I mean, I think Curtis will be their go-to scorer down the wire, and that might be where their benefit with Keyshawn being out, because I feel like late in games the ball would find Keyshawn's hands, and if he couldn't initially drive, he would put his teammates in horrible spots to like launch up a three or something like that. So yeah, that Iowa State team will be really interesting because I feel like before that initial Milan injury, a lot of people had them locked in on the Final Four. But since all these injuries have kind of happened, they've fell off a little bit. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
I got a question for you guys. I think one thing that stands out about this bracket though is we have like some tougher 8 seeds, like 8-9 games for the 1 seeds. I still think a lot of 1 seeds will make it through the first weekend. I think all of them will. But if you knew ahead of time that one of the 1 seeds loses that first weekend, who would you think it is?
Oof. If I had to pick one, it'd be Auburn. If I had to pick one, that's a weird. I know that's going to be the unpopular pick, but
yeah,
I just don't see Duke, Houston, or Florida losing, and I think Auburn.
If I took one, it would be Gonzaga over Houston.
That was the one that I was
8-9.
No, you.
Yeah, I think
that was the one that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I think Graham Ike and God, what's that other big that they have? The big white guy. I think they could potentially give fits to Houston, and Gonzaga has the veteran elite guards that could potentially handle that pressure from Houston that I feel like a lot of teams don't have. So I think that would be my one, is Gonzaga over Houston. Meisner, what about you?
Yeah.
I'd pick Duke. I think looking at Baylor and Mississippi State in the first round, winner of that, I think they could give them some fits. And I think if it's not either one of those 8 or 9s, it'll be VCU. I think VCU could take down Duke.
I don't know how serious the flag
it's crazy. But... Yeah, I mean the 8-9s are so interesting this year because like UConn, Gonzaga, Baylor, and even Creighton were all like preseason top 15 teams. So they have like the requisite talent to hang with these 1 seeds. They just haven't put it together for a variety of reasons. I was curious to see who UConn got paired with. I don't think they match up with Florida very well at all. But I thought they could have given like Auburn or Duke a game, but
yeah, the UConn team has been so interesting. I feel like Liam McNeely's kind of been their go-to scorer late in games, but I'm not really sold on him. And I think, I don't know, Samson Johnson's he's kind of been down all year. I feel like, I don't know, Terrace Reed's kind of been their best big man. And yeah, against Florida, I mean, I think Florida would eat them up, but it's really hard always to go against Dan Hurley in the tourney. But yeah, I don't think UConn has, I mean, them matching up with Florida in the second round, it's going to be really tough. And initially I was like, okay, I could see UConn making a little run, but that's a really tough matchup for them. But I think they can get past Oklahoma.
Sure.
So I guess national champion, who do you got winning it all?
I think I was happy to see Florida and Houston go on opposite ends of the bracket because I do think this Houston team is due to an extent. I don't think they're as talented as some of the teams they've had the last couple of years where they had Shed and Sasser, but they're probably healthier than those last teams have been. I think they got a good draw. I think Houston makes the national championship and loses to Florida. I hate that Florida won the SEC tournament. I almost wish they would have just like lost a shootout to Alabama yesterday. Because I think everyone's going to be on Florida going into this tournament, but I don't care. They can just win in so many different ways. You could tell me that they just stifle teams and play a game in the 60s and win. I wouldn't say that's their preferred way of winning, but they can win that way. And then their guards can just take over a game. I mean, they dropped 86 points on Tennessee, who might be the best defensive team in the tournament. The NCAA tournament's weird. Things get weird, but I think Florida overcomes the tough bracket and in a real way and beats Houston in the national championship.
Yeah, no, that's my pick too. And yeah, like you said, I am kind of mad that they did win the SEC tournament because now they're going to be the entire nation's going to be on them, which sucks. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think they can win in any way. They have a great backcourt, elite front court. And when they need a bucket, they can go to many guys. They have experience. I think Walter Clayton is probably the best point guard in the nation. So yeah, I'm right there with you with Florida.
Yeah, these Florida guards have like really legit NCAA tournament experience too, like at mid-major schools. And I mean, I don't know, it's crazy. I'm huge on them. And then I honestly was like not as high on Houston until, I mean, like watching them at the Big 12 tournament, there's like times where you feel like they have like 6 defenders on the court. Their limitation being, like you mentioned earlier, like their tallest guy is just 6'8". So they don't have like true size, but the way they play, it's super impressive watching them play defense. I know that's kind of just Houston's MO by now from the Kelvin Sampson era, but they're so impressive. What I would worry about with them is now that they're getting officiated by non-Big 12 refs, are they going to have a game where the refs take over and start getting and aren't used to dealing with the physicality that they play with? And I would worry in a Sweet 16 game that could make the difference between them getting upset and not by once they start playing elite competition. So
yeah, no, I'm with you on that. The refereeing does make a big difference because I feel like once Iowa State gets knocked out, that's the thing that we're going to hear from every Iowa State fan is about the goddamn officials, how the foul calls have changed, how it wasn't called like that all year. So I'm fully ready for that. But yeah, it is going to be a big adjustment for these SEC Big 12 teams. I feel like they're officiated differently during the season, and now you're getting just a different mix of refs that have ref different leagues. So yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. But all right, well, hey, appreciate you coming on though and sharing your thoughts. We'll be in touch for sure as the tourney goes. So yeah, appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, guys. This was fun.
Yeah, best of luck with your bracket, man.
Yeah, see ya.
A lot of good insight.
All right, great first guest. Let's keep it moving along here. We got our second guest ready to join here.
What's up, boys? Start your engines. Best time of the year.
Oh, gosh.
Here comes the mid-major expert.
Did you hear my Drake comment earlier? Were you listening?
I wasn't locked in.
I just mentioned that. Well, I'll let you expand on what you think of the Drake draw first.
Yeah, let's hear about Drake.
I don't love it. I'll start by saying that. I think Spencer's analysis was actually kind of spot on. It's really going to be dependent on the type of style that the game's played at, the pace. And I think McCollum's done a really good job at kind of forcing teams to play their way. But Missouri's a whole different beast. This isn't Bradley anymore. And so, it's really going to come down to pace. I think Mark Mitchell will provide Missouri with kind of a mismatch. I don't know how well Banks and Maniau can hold him down. And then their guard play is phenomenal. I mean, Bates and Perkins, obviously. Ryan and I know Perkins well, and Meisner. I think the pace is going to be a big thing. They get up a ton of threes. I think, like I said, Mark Mitchell's a problem. I think he'll be hard to guard. And then Caleb Grill coming off the bench as a flamethrower too. But, we have the best player in the country on our team. So I'm confident we can beat anyone.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern there is, obviously the pace. They need to control that. But the Mark Mitchell, he's an issue. I feel like his ability to draw fouls, and he's just an animal down low. And Drake doesn't really have the depth down low. If Maniau or Banks get in foul trouble early, I mean, if you have to go to Ferguson early, they're going to be in trouble right away.
Right. And, if you can force Banks and Maniau into foul trouble, it takes a lot away from Drake's pick and roll game at the top of the key with Sturtz. They're going to hold that ball until 8 seconds on the clock, flip it to Sturtz and run that pick and roll. And if those two are in foul trouble early, it could get ugly. But McCollum will scout him well. I think he's one of the best X's and O's coaches in America, and I'm confident they'll have a good game plan ready to go. But I'm a little worried they might get punched in the mouth and not be able to get up. But we'll see. They'll be ready to go.
I did see a stat over the last 10 years. in the 11-6 matchup, the 11 seeds have won 65% of the time in the last 10 years. So that's one thing on Drake's side. You typically always see an 11-6 upset. So
Yeah.
they're in a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's the 11-6 is always a fun one. There's always upsets. The spread's interesting. I think it's only like 6.5 Missouri's way. I thought maybe it'd be a little more than that, but I kind of like all the 6-11 matchups. You guys were talking about that Texas Xavier playing game. That'll be a fun one. And I kind of agree with what Stulken was saying about Texas and Trey Johnson. Such a walking bucket. Like, I think they could get on a heater and go. I'm not super high on Illinois. Even though I'm a Big Ten guy, I don't really see it with them. And then the Ole Miss, SDSU, UNC, I'm not super thrilled about that one. I don't think it'll be too exciting. But BYU VCU will be like a total mismatch in styles too, kind of like the Drake Missouri game. BYU couldn't miss against Iowa State. I enjoyed watching that. But VCU's got a couple really good players. I remember watching them a few times in the early season tournaments. They can shoot it, and Ryan Odoms obviously knows how to win in March, their coach. So I think the 6-11 matchups are pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
Meisner, you never really expanded on Drake. Have you watched Drake at all this year, or have you not seen him?
I've seen Drake a decent amount. I watched a good amount of Missouri Valley basketball. I remember going back to the non-conference. I think they beat Vandy. They ended up sucking, but they beat Miami. And that was way back when I thought Miami could be decent. I remember betting on Miami, and they got pounded. They got off to a great start right away, and then they handled business in the Missouri Valley. They fucking pounded Bradley in the championship game. I don't think Missouri. I wouldn't be too worried about Missouri.
Yeah, it's just I think it's just like kind of a step up in class. Like even Vanderbilt's good. Byington in his first year, kind of a fun story. They've played pretty well, but they just haven't seen a team with this type of offensive firepower, I don't think. And so I'm a little worried if they get really like knocked down right away that it might be too much to come back from. But I don't know. Russell, what are your thoughts?
No, you hit it right on the head. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think as Drake being my self-proclaimed second team in March Madness, obviously will be cheering for him, want them to win really bad. I don't see them beating Missouri. And if they somehow, some way do beat Missouri, I think they're going to get mollywalked by Texas Tech, unfortunately. Those two matchups just are not great for Drake. And like you said, if they get down early, they're not a team that can – if they're down 10-15 at half, I don't have any faith in them to come back from that in the second half. So if they're going to win this game, it's going to be because they slowed them down from the start and they're somehow only up or down 5 going in the last 5 minutes, and they scrap that away. But I honestly don't see that happen. I think Missouri's going to end up winning this and covering.
Okay. You're right. I think they got to play it in like the low 60s and keep it a close game, and they're not going to beat them if they play up in the 70s or the 80s. So, they're going to have to play their style and do it their way, and Sturts is going to have to be Sturts. And Miscari started to show a little promise towards the end of the NBC tournament. He hasn't been shooting it great the last couple weeks. He made a couple threes and some free throws that hopefully he can get his confidence going, because they're going to need to be able to shoot the outside shot to have any chance. So. Yeah,
I just pray to God they don't let fucking Caleb Grill get going, because I hate that dude so much.
Yeah, I fucking hate so much.
We're gonna find Joe in the nearest river if Caleb Grill hits a last second shot.
Don't let that man hit.
You're not wrong,
30
dude.
points.
Yeah.
What if Tony Perk does it?
It's still bottom of the river.
Big Perk. If Big Perk hits 30.
I don't know. I don't think he hasn't had like a great year, right? I've only watched Missouri a handful of times. I watched him when they kicked it out of Bama, but I think he's been like all right, but not great. So,
I don't even think he's really in their closing lineup either.
Do we have breaking news from Ryan Funk in the chat? DeVries to Iowa confirmed by Eckholt. Breaking news, boys.
Is that true?
Let me go look. Holy crap.
Oh my God. No way. Funk better not be fucking.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's laughing his ass off right now at us because he's pulling one over. I'm seeing DeVries to Indiana.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's talk some more about this bracket, though, boys. Where do we in terms of high seeds, I'm eyeing. I think High Point's going to beat Purdue. I think they may have a Sweet 16 run in them. I'm super. You guys touched on this a little bit. I'm super high on UC San Diego. I've been watching them and betting them late night, like all season long. You touched on this a little bit. They have the lowest turnover rate in the country. Michigan turns the ball over like it's their job. I was like thinking UC San Diego automatic Sweet 16 for me. I think Michigan's size will give them a little bit of some problems because you just don't see that size like. But that conference is a really good conference. UC Irvine was a very formidable opponent for them in their conference title game. I think UC San Diego is a fun team. And I think New Mexico could make a run down there at that 10 seed. I'm not as high on Michigan State as Stulken is. I actually think Iowa State got about as good of a draw as they could. I'd be pretty I think they've got a pretty damn good shot to make the Elite Eight, which sucks. I hate them more than anything, but I think they've got a pretty good path, and I think New Mexico could kind of give them some resistance down there. I think New Mexico's a fun team too. I don't know about your guys' thoughts on any of that.
I think that South region is really interesting because I feel like those double-digit seeds are all really solid teams. Like I mean, New Mexico's great. That play in San Diego State, North Carolina, you never know with that. But I mean, I think Yale's good. I think UC San Diego's good. So I think we're going to see some decent amount of shakeup in the South. But obviously, you have Auburn sitting up at the top. So yeah, I mean,
you forgot one team in the South region, that 15 seed Bryant. They have a player by the name of Earl Timberlake Jr., Player of the Year in the America East. I'm telling you, I could see them giving Michigan State a game. I don't think they went outright. But I think that could be a game.
Yeah, no,
that's the most Rico Bosco thing I've ever.
What? Dude, he's good. Did you watch the America East Championship? I sure did.
Yeah, this is Rico's bit from 2 years ago. He's all high on Brian. Was wearing
because he was boys with the coach or whatever.
Yeah. I think I know the three of us watched Yale play this morning. I don't know if you caught this game, Joe, but
no, I took Yale 5.5. I saw they won by 6, so I was happy, but I didn't catch any of it. No.
Well, they can fill it up in a fucking hurry. They have this milk check guy that just will shoot no matter who's in his face at all, and he'll just sling it anytime. So if he gets hot, if that whole team gets hot, I mean, there was I think 2 players that shot under 40% from 3 today on their team, out of like the 6 or 7 guys that shot threes. And I'm not that high on Texas A&M or Michigan, and if they play UC San Diego, who knows what happens in that? But I think Yale could be a team that could be on the next weekend.
I do.
I don't hate that pick. I think. No, go ahead, Stulken.
Oh, I was just saying, I do really like that Yale team, but I do. Texas A&M is just so gritty, man. They're just like they're similar to Houston. Yeah. They're obviously not on Houston level, but God, I don't see those nerds from Yale being able to take down the dog from Aggie Land.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Those Yale teams are always, it's going to be the same blueprint, but I don't like the A&M matchup for them. Like Buzz Williams, he'll be sweating. He'll have wiping himself with the towel. He'll be playing defense on the sideline. I don't see Yale getting by A&M, even though I do think they're a pretty good mid-major.
Yeah.
But
let me throw this nugget out there, though. This A&M team, I think, is kind of similar to the Baylor team that Yale beat.
Yeah, I could see those comparisons.
I mean, they're both super athletic, play hard defense. I don't know. They may be nerds, Stulken, but they might be able to hold down Texas A&M. We haven't heard a single thing. Meisner, I guess, is on High Point, per his name on the podcast.
High Point, love it. What other things do I want to ask you guys about?
Joe, if there was who's the first 1 seed to go down?
Dude, I think this might be the chalkiest tournament since 2015. Like 2015, you had the Kentucky, Wisconsin team. Like, I don't see how these 1 seeds lose early. I don't see it with Louisville and Creighton. I just don't see anybody pushing. And like, obviously the flag injury, you never know, but like, it's a low ankle. He'll probably be okay by the round of 32. And I don't want to take all 4 1 seeds, and I have a future on Houston. So like, I think if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say Houston's like the most shaky 1 seed in terms of getting to the Final Four. But I have a future on them, so I'm going to pull for them. And I don't really believe in Tennessee, so like I just don't see any. Like Florida is such a wagon. I just don't see any of these teams losing early, which we know one's gonna fall early, like it happens every year. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's very chalky. I don't know about you guys.
I'm like on the same boat, and I hate the chalk. I hate it, but it's like these 1 seeds are just so damn good. And like we mentioned with Spencer, like I feel like the top 6 to 8 teams in the nation like are legit. And I think the top 3 with Duke, Auburn, and Florida, I mean, those 3 are just wagons. So I think it's really hard. Like seeing NC State make the Final Four last year, it's God. I mean, no one ever would have predicted that. It's impossible, but
Right.
it's so hard to even think of a team doing that again this year, at least.
Yeah, and Spencer said, like, I agreed. I don't love any of the 3 through 5 seeds. I just don't think, like, maybe Oregon could push Duke a little bit. I don't see it with Arizona. I mean, you guys know I was super high on Wisconsin, but I don't see it with any of these 3 through 5 seeds. Like Kentucky being a 3 was insane to me. I don't think they're like they can score it. I don't see them as a team that can really make a deep run. Texas Tech is like a fun, maybe trendy pick, but then you're playing St. John's, and even if you get past St. John's, you have Florida. Like I just don't really see it with any of those teams. So I mean, just at the West region now, I just got to say a Florida St. John's Elite Eight game would be unbelievably fun.
I think one interesting thing too with the conference tourneys is I feel like for the most part, outside of the Big Ten, the conference tourneys are pretty chalk. And like even last year, we saw NC State run the ACC, so like you could kind of see them coming in hot. You're like, okay, we can kind of get behind them, but there was never.
Right.
I mean, for the most part, the favorites won all their conference tourneys. So I don't know. Yeah, it is going to be interesting. It's going to be hard to not go with chalk, but it's upsets over crazy shit over time.
You said this earlier. I think Gonzaga could give Houston a run in the round of 32. I think that would be a fun game.
Yeah,
they looked really good. Well, they didn't shoot it well against St. Mary's, but they defended well. They got to the rim. You mentioned EK and that big lefty. I think they could maybe push Houston around a little bit, give them a game. But other than that, I think it's going to be pretty chalky.
Meisner, I need more of your input here. I'm intrigued on what you have to say.
What are you thinking about what?
You have a Houston future. If it wasn't going to be Houston, who you're kind of down on Duke. You both and Stulken have kind of said that Florida's now the trendy pick, and you don't like it as much. So is your second? If you had to place another future, would it be Auburn?
Well, I'll give you the teams I think can win it. I think Duke can win it. I think Florida can win it. I think Houston can win it. I think Auburn can. I think Tennessee on paper can, but they won't because of Rick Barnes. But that roster, I really like that roster. That might be it.
Am I the only one that thinks St. John's can win it?
No, I definitely think St. John's can win it. I don't know if they have enough scoring, but like RJ Lewis can get on a heater. Ejiofor's been hooping. I'd be pretty shocked to see them win it, but I think they definitely could.
I think I would like them more if they weren't running into Florida.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like Florida is
they just loaded up.
They're kind of the trend pick. Like everybody's talking about it. It's so good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let me give you guys my final four, and then I got to run. Miss Conrad's ready for dinner. I'm going to take – God, this South region is hard. I don't know how I don't take all 160s. Okay, out of the South, I'm going to take Auburn. Out of the East, I'm going to take Alabama. Midwest, I'm going to take Houston. And West, I'm going to take Florida. And I don't feel great about the Alabama. I just can't take all 1 seeds. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'm not going to bracket. But I feel pretty confident that Florida is going to make the Final Four. And other than that, I'm not super, super confident. But I think that would be a fun Final Four.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm trying to think through my Final Four, and it's so hard not to put at least Duke, Auburn, Florida all in that. Even I don't know. Looking at the Midwest, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to go against Houston there too, but it's like, holy shit, you can't. I hate doing all 1 seeds too. So yeah, it's really tough.
Right.
I'll be on all 1 seeds. All 1 seeds will be in my final.
Are you really?
Yes. It's happened in 2008 with all the Blue Bloods. It's about time it happens again. And like we all said, it's top heavy league this year.
Was that Kevin Love, UCLA 08? I think it was, right?
It was UCLA, Memphis, UNC, and
Kansas. Yeah, because Memphis and KU played in the final. Yeah. Meisner, what about you? What's your Final Four? Then I'll get out of here.
Final Four. Let me pull up the bracket quick again. Other than that, let me set it up. I think I'm going with Maryland as my outside shot team.
Okay, I like that.
But then I think Houston will go. Let me pull the bracket back up again. I got Houston in there for sure. I think Maryland will be the weird one that comes out.
The surprise one?
Yes. And then I lost my website.
Too many browser pages open. Huh? Quit asking so hard a question.
Well, Duke's in the one region, but I don't know if they're going to come out necessarily. I don't know yet. I think it's going to be. I got to pull the bracket here. Finally got it back up. Yeah, I have Maryland. I have Maryland coming out of the mid or out of the South. I think Florida's too chalky, so I'm gonna go with Maryland. Then I got Iowa State in the South.
Okay.
Then in the East, you'll probably have Duke. I think they will come out of the East. That region's too soft. And then I have Houston. So I got 2 1s. Houston, Duke. I'm gonna go Maryland and Iowa State on the west side of the bracket.
Okay, that's a little less chalk than I'm thinking. So I don't know. I just real quick before I get off. I mean, Russell, you really think this Iowa State team without Gilbert can make the Final Four? I know I'm a hater, but I just don't see them getting past the Sweet 16. I don't even know if they're going to get past the round of 32.
I mean, yeah, KG now being in really, I don't know how much it's going to affect us. My biggest thing is we ran into a good seeded Wisconsin Big Ten team last time and beat them. That's similar to this Michigan State team. I think we can get to the Elite Eight, and then when we play Auburn, because it will be Auburn that gets to that side, that one's going to be a really tough match. I would expect us to lose that one. But honestly, going into it, I expect us to beat Lipscomb, and I expect us to beat whoever we play next. And then Michigan State, if TJ can get to 3 Sweet 16s in 4 years, I'm happy. If they get to an Elite Eight, I'm ecstatic. Yeah. And I think we have a chance. If we are playing well enough to get to Elite Eight and we run into Auburn, who knows? We should have beaten them the first time we played them.
Yeah, they got a really good draw.
All right. Yeah. God, I wish my Hawks were in. Russell, you're lucky.
Hey, this is the last time we're not in, so we'll let them have it this
year. Yeah, hopefully the Bulldogs can make a little run. My secondary team be fun. But all right, boys, thanks for having me on. Best time of the year.
Coming on.
We'll watch the game together. So
see ya.
See you tomorrow. Do we have any other guests?
We got one more. Let's pull the bracket.
God, I wish he wasn't muted.
Unmute, JJ. We want to hear this phone call.
Sorry, boys. Just tying up some loose ends, you know. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing good. Thanks for
Not
joining
gonna
us.
lie, I felt better before, boys, but the great town of Dyersville, Iowa, I think kept the peace of me yesterday. So I think we'll just strap it in to talk some ball here, and
They had their St. Patty's Day parade yesterday, didn't they?
yeah, they do a nice little throwdown there. Yeah, they do.
JJ, I forgot we played each other last year and had a nice little podcast before.
Yeah, that was a good one. I don't think we could just start right there. I don't think this Illinois team's going the Elite Eight probably, but I know a little bit earlier I think it was that Spencer kid was talking about that Terrence Shannon team was fun. This one has not been as fun, that's for sure. Obviously the ups and downs. Probably, I mean, maybe the most talented Illinois team that I can remember like heavily following in my time of like being pretty dedicated in on them. But just so many ups and downs, and I don't like being the excuse guy because every time Underwood goes to the podium and he starts talking about that shit, it drives me nuts. But I mean, yeah, the injuries and the injuries have been brutal. The stretch of the illnesses was tough. I don't, but again, that's just life. So, but I like our. I don't mind where we're at. I guess I don't like that you got to wait on the 2-11s playing for that first four. I'm not a fan of that.
I feel like it's always tough to play that play-in, that 11 seed play-in, because once one team gets a win under their belt, they kind of build a little momentum. So I feel like it makes it tougher.
Exactly. And it's just like that weirdness of not knowing for sure who you're going to play.
Yeah.
Like everybody else could just be, hey, yep, we're chalked in. We're going to start scouting these guys. And now obviously they'll split it up and do all that. But
yeah, the Illinois team I feel like has been really interesting because they have the talent to potentially make a Final Four run. They're going to need KJ to really get going. I think Merez Johnson, he's back. So, I mean, they have the weapons. We'll see if they can put it together because I would trust Underwood, but
yeah,
it is going to be a tough choice.
Yeah, and I'm a big Underwood guy. Like I love Underwood. I think sometimes he catches some flack unfairly, but I mean, he's done a great job. I mean, the proof's in the pudding with them. They came out with a lot of those stats. We're like one of a handful of teams to win 20 games for 6 years in a row, winning as Big Ten team on the road in the last 6 years. Like a lot of good stuff, and making the Elite Eight last year. A lot of guys going to the NBA, and that kind of stuff. And so, like you said, it's obviously going to be really, really hinging on KJ a lot, which is tough, when you're a young player. But you could kind of see it in that Maryland game. Like he really sucked and struggled. And so, and then we kind of followed suit. But yeah, getting Merez is huge because he's a great defender and obviously boards and catching lobs and things. So, but I mean, like Ivasic has been a fun watch. It's been a fun. They've had their moments of being like a fun team for sure.
Yeah, I feel like you're lucky because I feel like every year Underwood gets good transfers or good recruits in, so you always have someone fun to watch. I feel like being a Hawkeye fan, it's just like, oh yeah, let's get excited about fucking Peyton Sanford launching up threes. Like it's just been horrible.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that's the part where I say like people like will be like, oh, I don't know about Brad, and it's like, do you remember what we were like before Brad? Some people forget it now. I'll tip my cap to John Gross this year, but what he's done with Akron. But the John Gross years of Illinois, that those were not. I would not want to go back to that. So I think people just got to kind of trust with what Brad's doing. Like you said, he's really done, and he's only really had like one bad year in the portal, and that was that kind of goofy year where we had Sky Clark and Matthew Meyer, that big like.
Oh yeah,
that was just a weird team. Like it didn't really fit well. Can't think of the kid that plays at Georgetown now. That Epps. Like
Jaden Epps.
It's some swing and misses in that portal, but that was really the only one. Like you said, every time he's really been solid since. So, and then we're like just turning into MLB team. We love the international prospects now.
Yeah, which is awesome.
We're already in line for one of the best ones for the next year too, for this next upcoming season. So. Hey, I'll take it. I mean, they're fun to watch. Like you said with KJ, and then Ivasic has been awesome this year too. Like it made a huge difference when he missed a bunch of games.
Yeah, and then if Will Riley gets hot too, like I mean, they have the firepower for sure. If they can just all start clicking at the right time, you never know.
Yeah, it was like the most depressing but stat of all time when they were talking about. I think it was like we shoot the fifth most threes. It was at like a couple weeks ago, but they were like 355th in percentage. But you shoot the
Yeah,
fifth.
I've heard of that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, but there's something to be said, JJ, about like because last year, obviously, both of our teams we came into the tournament like with high expectations. Now you're like you don't have that big of expectations, and not that you're playing spoiler because they're still a 6 seed and a good team, but it's not like that same like pressure you get of like possibly losing to an 11 or whatever it is down the road. It's like it takes a little bit of the
No,
stress
I
off.
agree with you too. I think because I mean the last couple of years the high expectations, obviously the 1 seed a handful of years back, but this year, like be able to play spoiler. I think too it would be. I don't know much about Texas and Xavier. I'll put my hand up there, but but I mean I would assume that we would match up well either way. I would like us to at least win that game, and then you see what happens with the Kentucky's a fun storyline for us. If you follow the assistant coach carousel closely at all the last couple of years, Calipari his last year stole Orlando Antigua, and then this guy I can't think of his first name, but his name's Chin Coleman, and and then Antigua actually came back as an assistant this year, so that'd be kind of a fun little back and forth, but it's one of those things where I don't love Kentucky either. I know that's a whole new look program over there, but I don't see why we wouldn't have a chance to beat them.
How do you feel about this being Ben Hummerchaus's last tournament run?
Hummerchaus, formerly of Edwardsville, or I think Evansville. Yeah. What a guy. It's always funny though. Like that's like the other side of those transfers. It's like they get the senior day for being at Illinois for 3 months. Or insert the school. You get these assassins, these mercenary seniors, fifth-year seniors, and it's like, well, here's your senior day. It was awesome memories, and it's like, yeah, you were 20, 21, and 11. You were 6 seed, so yeah, that is funny. He's been kind of hit or miss too, and he got asked to do some tough stuff when Merez was out and played. I mean, a five spot that he had no business playing, and he's a streaky shooter. That really, it's going to come down to the threes and what resemblance of a defense that we could show up and play with. Because if we play a little bit of defense and we make some of our threes, we're hard to beat. When you're giving up threes to Peyton Sanford left and right, and that and then now we're looking at a 90 to 80 something. Well, then it's like now anything can happen. So
for sure.
The tip times did just come out. Illinois is playing Friday night, 8:45. Kevin Harlan on the call.
Love that. I think Dan Gundy was there too.
He is there too, yeah.
That's awesome. That should be fun. I'm sure he'll have some nice things to say about Brad.
Someone have the Iowa State time?
Iowa State.
Oh my God, 12:30. Give me a goddamn break.
Okay, are they Thursday?
Well, hopefully I hit my sales quota before Friday so I can watch that game.
Yeah.
You got the good draw there, JJ. The night game, the last game,
the
last game of the whole round.
I will sign up for that every year. That's an awesome draw for us there. Now, don't get me wrong. I was possibly looking forward to watching it during class, but the kids can teach themselves. They'll be all right. They got to know that there's some things are bigger than social studies, and it's Illinois basketball. But how are we feeling, Brandon? How are we feeling about Iowa State? Obviously, I've heard you guys kind of talk about it here now with the last couple guests. I think obviously that injury is huge, but I mean, like you said, I mean, if you make it to the point where it's like, all right, we made it, we beat Michigan State, and now you're in a game against Auburn. Anything can happen. You're not going to be favored, and they're obviously the number 1 overall seed for a reason. But if you guys get yourself there, and anything can happen.
You coming on actually made me think of another point that I've yet to say is we like already peaked. We peaked in November and December and early January. And since then, it kind of went downhill, and it's kind of made its way back up a little bit. So as much as we're a 3 seed and we had all these super high hopes, the last couple of weeks, like I brought my expectations down a little bit. I think the majority, especially Hawkeye fans, our expectations are low as well for Iowa State. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Obviously, yeah, I want to get to the Sweet 16. I want to get to the Elite Eight, but more importantly, there's nothing more fun than being able to make it to the second weekend and you get that whole week to think about everything. I know you Hawk fans haven't ever really experienced that, but you get like literally the whole week to just think about that next game. Your team's still in it. Talk shit to whoever you're playing. Talk shit to Hawkeye fans. So that's my biggest goal is make the second weekend, win the first 2 weeks, and have that week to at least think about shit and hopefully put yourself in a situation to make an Elite Eight.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and kind of like you were saying with us, it's feels like a little bit of the expectations right now because of injuries and things, but have kind of fallen off them, and that's not the worst place to be when you're worried about the stressors of March and the tournament.
Agreed.
Have you thought ahead yet, JJ? Have you thought about Final Four picks, sleeper teams, national champs yet?
Yeah. And it was fun listening to you guys talk about yours. I feel like it's kind of the consensus, right? It is a little chalky this year. I think it was you, Stulken, that said it, but like there's like those top 5 or 6 teams, and man, after that, it's like you don't feel great about everybody else, but it's almost like you could talk yourself into any of those top 5 or 6 teams, and which is I think out of the question of also just talking about Florida, I think you guys said like the people who there's always that Jack Golke, whatever. I was jokingly when I was listening to that, I was like Florida was just popping up in my head because seriously, like I knew they were good. Didn't watch them much during the regular season unless they were like the primetime game. But like I couldn't even tell you who their head coach is, and I knew the point guard. But like we were talking about them this weekend, and it was like, are they just the best team that like maybe a casual or like I'm not an SEC guy has never. I can name the point guard, or I know like that he's good, but like other than that, it's like, all right, well,
yeah. No, that's funny you say that because, yeah, they probably are. Like, I mean, I feel like the last few years Florida hasn't been like on top of the college basketball world, other than like the Joakim Noah days when they went back to back. But yeah, I feel like for like a casual fan, a lot of people probably don't know much about Florida. But it was kind of funny earlier in the year. So their head coach, Todd Golden, was actually facing Title IX charges because he was like creeping on college girls and like messaging them and like doing weird stuff. And I remember talking to Meisner about it, and then randomly all those charges just got dropped and nothing else has been said about him. But yeah, there's something weird going on there. I think they're like, holy shit, we got a national title. Like they had a damn good team. Let's drop these charges. So there's a little off-court baggage with their head coach.
You think Urban Meyer's still got some pull in Gainesville there, Mize, if we got things like that going on?
Absolutely. I think he swooped in there, and like I said, it was very convenient. They just, nope, there's nothing here, nothing to talk about.
Yeah, because he was still like, even when they were like in the heat of it, he was still on the sideline coaching. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then yeah, like a week later, they're like, yeah, everything's dropped.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah,
seeing those guys catching lobs and pinning people off the glass, they're like,
yeah. Well, those coaches are too bad.
When you look at it, it's not that bad. But yeah, so Florida, I like them a lot just from like I said, they kind of been one of the more complete teams. I feel like their offense is awesome, and I like their build. On like they just got like these huge guys that are long too. I like Maryland. I think if this is a tough one because I do think like a St. John's or a Maryland could definitely knock off Florida, but it would be hard for me not to put them in my Final Four. I'm pretty bullish on Houston. I think Houston's awesome. I'm jealous of any legit Houston Cougar basketball fan out there because I would have probably, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I would want my team to play like Houston does. If you told me, hey, I don't know how good you're always going to be, but they play like Houston Cougars, and I'm not a Samson guy. I fucking hate Samson, but but if you told me my team was going to play like the Houston Cougars, I'd sign up for that every year. I don't care what the record is. because they're
they play so
about
hard.
them is their fan base on Twitter and just in general is actually really good people. Like as an Ohio State fan, I hate Kansas. I think they're all D-bags, including Jody Wagner. I hate Texas Tech. But Houston's the one fan base that I respect. And I'm like, you know what? We have a good little rivalry going on. They're a great team, great coach, good culture. We don't really talk shit that much.
And that's good to see your perspective of it, because obviously we're all much more plugged into Big Ten Twitter. When you get a little Big 12 Twitter, I would never know what Houston's fan base is like.
Fuck the Orange Crush.
No, they're
That's
nice
good
people.
to know.
They're good people.
That's good to know. But yeah, Houston, I think I would be like I said, I'd have to put them in. So Florida and Houston. In the South, I really do think Auburn has a chance to lose in the first weekend to a Louisville or Creighton. I think Louisville is probably underseeded, and I think Creighton. I mean, if they play their A game, they could play with an Auburn. They could play with some of these better teams, and so out of the South, I'd probably go Michigan State, because also similarly, I don't want all 4 ones as well. And then in the East, Duke, I mean, it's all obviously well, they tried to prove it that it's not, but I think it all hinges on Cooper Flagg, obviously. Like, right, you don't need to be the smartest guy for that. But as long as he's good to roll, I mean, they're going to be a hard out. Very, very high chance they win the Natty. I'm not big on Alabama. I actually don't think I wouldn't hate on a little sneaky St. Mary's Final Four ticket. That was a nice little sprinkle a couple weeks ago. And I kind of like their path, honestly, because like I said, I'm not huge on Bama. I think Wisconsin kind of stinks. If Tanjay looks anything like he did today, they're just a team that's in big games. But yeah, so I would just say Duke, Michigan State, Florida, and Houston. And then I would keep it going with the Houston and Florida. And I would pick Houston. I'd pick Houston. I just think their defense, and then this year I feel like the scoring. I think you were talking about Stoke, but there's not the maybe the superstar like with the Sassers and the Shed, but I just feel like their overall level of offense is just better. Cryer's awesome. Was it Uzan? Right, like they just shoot a little bit better.
Yeah, he's been great.
So long and athletic, like it's unbelievable. They just are a bad matchup for anybody they play. And so, yeah, I would pick them against Florida. But, yeah, some of those sleeper teams, like I said, I do actually I like a St. Mary's. Oregon, I think, they've got kind of a nice little path there if they could kind of take care of their business. Don't count out the Illini, I guess. But yeah, no, and then Maryland too. Like I said, I think Maryland's. I'm not huge on Memphis, especially with the injury to Hunter. And as long as Maryland can take care of business, and then again, you just have to beat Florida and see what happens. So,
yeah, overall,
do you miss Coleman Hawkins?
Dude, Coleman Hawkins. I mean, that video was hard to watch.
Yeah, that was tough.
That was brutal. Now, from what I gather, being a message board guy, big thing was just the money, right? And I also think Brad and them were kind of pushing him out, to be honest with you. I think they kind of looked at this year's team and thought they wanted to go a different direction because Ivasic, I think they thought was a better version of him because he could shoot it a lot better. And then they wanted Merez to play a lot. And so, which is funny now looking at it because, like, you'd think about what Coleman Hawkins would look like on this team and you feel a lot better about the team probably.
Yeah.
And then he probably feels that same way. I know he got asked that straight up, and he obviously said, always going to say he loves his time at his new place. But him balling, it was kind of a little cherry on top for that. Like, grass isn't always greener. You know, like I kind of started this whole rant off with, like, Illinois is just one of those programs that we know about them being Big Ten and Midwest and all that, but I just feel like nationally still, like Brad and the program in general just don't get that kind of respect for starting to really build into a consistent winner.
Yeah, now that you say that, I feel like Coleman Hawkins would be perfect for this team, just because of how poorly they've shot the 3-ball. I feel like when they made their run last year, obviously Terrence Shannon was a big part of that, but he was, Coleman Hawkins was an elite stretch big. I feel like he was shooting it really well, and he would fit perfect on this team.
Yeah, super athletic, good defender, rim runner. He could create his own shot.
Yeah,
At being that size and that athletic, he could post up. He had it. He's got a decent little handle. He could definitely get to some things. So yeah, it is funny how that works out. Where he definitely would slide in pretty nice on this team.
Yeah.
So I'm sure both of them could probably put a hand up that they made a mistake there. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it felt like almost like I don't want to say an underwhelming conference tournament week kind of leading into this.
I think I kind of felt like it was because I just feel like all for the most part the one seed just kind of dominated with Duke, Houston. Honestly, I think Florida could have been easily. I mean, they're pretty much like a one seed in the SEC.
Right.
But like the Big Ten, that was really the only like 3-5 matchup.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like it was pretty chalky compared to years past. So yeah, it'll be really interesting.
How do you guys feel about? I'll flip this on you. How do we feel about Michigan?
I think they're going to be an early exit. I don't know. I still have bad memories of when Iowa ran the table in the Big Ten tournament and then got bounced by Richmond in the first round. I feel like I could see that with Michigan. I almost think it's good to go into the tourney with a little bit of adversity. I know Patino had talked about that on Pardon My Take, like when he purposely benched his best player back in the day when they were going into the tourney and then they won the national title. I don't know. I feel like there's so many highs and lows throughout the season. Michigan's obviously coming off of a huge high, and now they're going to potentially overlook the UC San Diego team, but you never know. Dusty May's a great coach, so I'll definitely be looking to fade them though early.
I think so too. That's kind of. I'm not a huge believer in the 2 7-footers in today. Now I know the Wolf is a little bit different than your average 7-footer, and Golden's got some passing abilities too. But I don't know if that's a great matchup. Even though it is a mid-major, but having UC San Diego for him.
Yeah, I don't love Michigan's guards at all. So
I don't either. I was super underwhelmed by them. Now, obviously, they did play well in the Big Ten tournament. Like, kudos to them. And like you said, they kind of put it together. But the whole bulk of the season, their guards were not great.
Yeah, pretty underwhelming.
Really, really big into the turnovers. That was funny in that interview too. Or Pardon My Take with Dusty May, like about the turnovers, and it's like it's hard to believe that a team like a Michigan was just like, yeah, no, our biggest bugaboo is that we turn the ball over like we're an 8th grade team.
Yeah, which that I feel like those type of things like really pop up in March and really can screw you over.
I text Staggy every year when Dusty May comes on. Pardon my take, because I think Staggy and Dusty May could be twins. The way they talk, the way they coach, everything about
That's
them
funny.
are exactly the same. Stulken, if you haven't listened to Dusty May on Pardon My Take, go back and listen to it tomorrow. I think you'll be surprised at the resemblance.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to that. I never caught on to the him and Staggy thing.
Shout out Coach Staggy.
He just laughs at my message every time I send it to him. Both now 2 years in a row, just ha-has it. I'm like, okay, sick.
Do you have any upsets before we go?
Yeah. Well, geez, I'm sure you guys watch the reveal show, but man, I think Seth Davis's Final Four is just going to be all 13s, 12.
He was so annoying. So annoying. Every reason they went through, he's like, "Oh, I think this and this is going to happen." It's like,
I was like, "How many can you pick? All of them?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll start, I guess, in the South. Like we just talked about with Michigan, I think that's an intriguing one to look at. Yale. I'm not a big Texas A&M guy. I do like Buzz, but Yale, I think is that's. I think if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Yale, Texas A&M in that region. Obviously, we just had the Drake expert on. 11/6 there. That's not a bad little pick there. I'm not huge in Missouri. I got to watch them. I usually pay more close attention to them at the beginning of the year because they play Illinois every year towards the beginning for the bragging rights game, and I would like a Drake win over them over there. In the Midwest, I think the easy one is McNeese Clemson. I think that's the one people would say but I'm kind of using the struggle in the conference tournament. I kind of like Clemson there. I think them not having that setback's good for them. and they know that they have like the darling of the last 2 years for the 12. Like everybody's talking about McNeese for being what they're ranked. That High Point Purdue would be interesting because weird that Purdue's being carried by a guard for probably the first time in my life in the last 5 years.
Purdue, they're just so interesting to me because if Braden Smith can't get going, they're in big trouble. And if they can't just feed Kaufman-Renn, then they're in huge trouble. And like you saw it in the Big Ten tournament, like they were just trying to go to Kaufman-Renn, and it just didn't work. So I'm not very high on Purdue.
And that formula works when you have an ED, when you had some of those guys that you've had the last couple of years. But like you said, when it's just keep going to Kaufman-Renn's a nice player, but if they run into somebody right that could kind of make it tough on Smith, they're not gonna last very long. So I wouldn't be shocked if they lost. And then in that top one, Akron, like I said, shout out John Gross. Same thing with I like what you talked about with BYU being soft. I'm not huge into them either. I think and everything I see online, people love VCU. For the last couple weeks now, I've been starting when they start talking about sleepers and Cinderellas, and they're kind of one of the original, right? So that would be fun. I know nothing. I know Stulken said you're watching some Big Sky this year. Kudos to you, real ball head there. But like I said, I don't love Wisconsin either. I don't know anything about Montana, but I'll take a flyer on the Grizz.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's really it, boys. Like I said, the brain's not firing on full cylinders, but we had fun. Tournament this week. We make it to Wednesday. We'll be all right.
Yeah, we can do this.
Best time of the year.
St. Patrick's Day weekend too. We'll get the best.
Yep. Got won't lie. Got to reload the DK account for the tournament too. A lot of firing offs yesterday that maybe didn't go the kids' way, but that's what we have the tournament for.
The highs and lows of March. Your high's coming.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, JJ. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys. I miss you guys. Let's get ready to go into March. Have a good time.
Absolutely.
Good luck, JJ.
See you, fellas.
See ya.
All right. And then we're at 3. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
I think I'm out of thoughts. I feel like we hit on everything over the past couple hours, but it's going to take me a long time to fill out this bracket because the one downside of watching a lot of these teams throughout the years, you just start to overthink all of these matchups, and you try not to beat chalk, but then if you try to go against the chalk, then I don't know, you can screw yourself over. So I'm just going to overthink every damn play, so it's going to be really hard.
Are you guys filling out one bracket or multiple brackets?
So if I do multiple challenges, I stick with the same bracket in all of them. So I'll probably just do one. I don't like switching them up because then I see myself cheering for, I need them, but I could use them. Like I just like going with one bracket, cheer for one thing. So yeah.
I'm excited to get a bracket in my hands. Fill out those fucking winners. Feel good about myself.
Yeah. We'll have to get a big bracket challenge started.
Yes.
With a group of people.
For sure. We can announce it. We'll announce that. We'll get one going. Shout out everyone who joined in tonight. Chat was going. We got some good guests. That's what it's fucking talking about. March Madness. All the seeds are in. We got all the picks. The times are in. You got no excuses now. Go out there and fucking make it happen. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we got one night of sleep before the first 4 starts on Tuesday. I think we can handle ourselves tomorrow. And let's wrap this baby up.